Welcome to Cosmic Communion.
Like 4 days ago, we did our Heavenly Bodies energetic invitation for the season of Aquarius. And in that space, I think what we want to call them here, even in Cosmic Communion, is bridge. Bridge 19. Because we're really trying to get from these like structured, tightly confined ideas of 19 or of any hexagram and expand them into a felt sense of awareness. What does that feel like in my body? Because our 19s feel completely different than somebody else because they're going to have many different placements in their chart that add to the context of what 19 serves in their system as a whole. It's all interconnected. So the bridge of 19 in human design is called the gate of wanting or approach. That's gate 19. Bridge 19 in heavenly bodies is the tribal sensitivity and drive towards meeting the needs necessary to evolve and experience deeper intimacy. And I think what is really qualitative there is when we bring in words and descriptors that speak to the center it's emanating from. So sensitivity and drive it's moving towards a relationship with the solar plexus. It's in the root center, but it's not just separate from the solar plexus. Those two things are entangled with one another. And so if we lose context of what the solar plexus brings, the awareness that it brings to that channel as a whole, then we kind of lose the full story of 19 in general.
I love that you bring up the connection to evolution, because something that was coming forward as we were beginning to open up the 19 box was the mirroring with 41. And a lot of these themes and like correlations and this like mirrored aspect of it was really coming alive for me for the first time. And I think that's something that also has been initiated by heavenly bodies, is beginning to see, you know, like for example, coming from the root, we have 19, 39, and 41, and that they're all really just like different flavors of the same circuitry, really, right? Because because all three of those channels are connecting the root to the solar plexus. And so underneath that, there is a shared function in a sense.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, it's the orientation. It's that part that we talked about with orientation. So tribal and collective circuitry is oriented like more externally versus individual circuitry is oriented internally. It's focused on its own process and how that energy is working from an individual perspective versus how it's impacting the collective and our tribe and like the people that we love that are closest to us. So that's like a part that really comes in clear.
And the vision that just came to mind is like, oh my God, I love that, because it also feels like the tribe and the collective, like the others are protecting the individual because the individual is in the center.
Yeah.
Isn't that cute?
I think that's so cute. No, it really, actually, it's hilarious that you're saying this right now, because I was just looking back in the definitive book, and when it talks about circuitry, it does it's like our collective circuitry is literally like this buffer to the internal sweetness, like the internal most vulnerable parts of us. And so in that way we can kind of like, yeah, we can see, it's like we can expand even our own orientation of what that means for us. Last week with 41, we talked about how your perspective as a 41 is it's always very much included others around you, versus thinking about the sensitivity of the 39, which is part of the Cancer zodiac, and how like That's the crab, right? Like, the crab is protecting this,
Mm.
like, this inner vulnerability. They gain this hard outer shell to protect this, like, really delicate underbelly. Um, that is so cute. I love how, like, what's really beautiful about all of this is seeing how intelligent the organization is, that
Mhm.
the body graph is the law. Like, it is a organization of higher law inside of
Mm.
us.
Wait, keep going on that. 'Cause I feel like we're talking about how heavenly bodies is this expansion upon human design. It's this evolution of human design. And you keep orienting us back to the body graph as the map of our consciousness,
Yes.
the map of where the material meets the spirit,
Mhm.
and the synthesis that is created through those things coming together, through matter and spirit coming together and creating the secret's third thing,
Mhm.
which is what we are. And so I know you like riff a lot about juxtaposition, unified theory, and all of that. And I was just listening last night to your conversation with Tansy,
Mhm.
and like again, like this piece of human design that I think gets really glossed over, which is the quantum aspect of it. That like the body and the personality coming together creates that's our fifth dimensional body. Anyways,
Mhm.
maybe that's a little bit of a tangent, but
No, like, it's yeah, no, it's already here. We're being that right now. And I feel like we are reclaiming and acknowledging the it's like this, not the software, what's like the word that I wanna use? Like, it's like we're recognizing the power of what's already innately a part of us. And I feel like that's why I go back to this, like, obsession I have with Jesus, is not as a religious figure, but as literally an ascended master of form mechanics. His message to his disciples and to everybody he taught was like, God resides within you. He was like, the solar plexus, this will loop us back into 19 and what we're learning in Aquarius season, which is the solar plexus is our translator of the unseen realms. And we already
mhm.
have that software. Is that the right word? I don't know that that's like the right word, but it's like it's the it's like the transcriptor. Yeah, it's the
The
like the
transcriber. Oh, I know what you're saying. Okay, now I
it's like a
it's
translator, and it's like it's taking in all of the data, and then like
mhm,
then we're becoming aware of like frequency of light of data coming into our body, and we're all feeling that evolution happening. Like, we're all reclaiming and acknowledging, like, wow, we are absolutely fucking capable of operating at the 5D, and we haven't been using that power. We haven't been
yeah.
acknowledging that. Oh my god, don't get me on soapboxes.
That's the whole point of this podcast. We just created a space for us both to be on our soapboxes, which is what we need because our soapboxes are
uh
good.
yeah, they're
Um,
good. They're good. So
says 2 10s and
19.
26s. Listen up, bitches. Um,
Oh, that's
yeah.
hilarious.
So back to 19.
Yeah, back
What
to
I would
19.
love to do to kind of like rein it in, the way that we want to use this space is to really like invite these frequencies
Mm,
in and
mhm,
see how do they feel in our bodies. We've learned, we've read the gene keys, we've read the definitive book, we've listened to the lectures. That's all great. Let's set it down and let's literally just invite these frequencies into the space and see what they have to say, to see what they feel like in the body. And then speaking to what you were just talking about with the translator, right? Using our bodies, which are these translators of energy,
Yes.
to tune into what else is there. What have we missed, right?
Yes. Yes. The queen has spoken. But it's the bridge, right? Like, so we're calling this bridge 19 in cosmic communion. And
Yeah.
the bridge is taking you from one understanding to another. It's
Mhm.
taking you to a different place. And that bridge is not closed. The concept of a bridge, which is it's not a one-way system. It's that you can come back and forth between the bridge. That there is
Mhm.
a place to go read the definitive book, to go read the I Ching, to go learn these concepts, and then to come back to your body, to your own understanding, to your own differentiation and say, "Oh, like what does 19 actually feel like?" So, yeah, let's get into it
Let's
actually.
do it.
After 15 minutes of like tapping around, like dancing around it.
To me, like, that's why when cosmic communion came up, I was like, "Yes, that's it. I want to commune with these frequencies. I don't
Yes.
wanna learn about them, I want to commune with them, I want to exchange with them, I want to feel them."
Yes. Yes.
So here we go.
Oh, holy shit, look at us. Look at us.
So, we'll just close our eyes and inviting everybody who's listening to this to close their eyes as well, if that is available to you. And throw down a grounding cord to the center of the earth. And we will invite in the 19th bridge, the frequency of 19. The first thing that came online for me was this like fuzzy feeling,
Mm.
like almost like I have fur.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know from my studies as well that 19 does have to do with that physical touch, right? And animals, our connection to the animal world. So that's kind of funny. But initially, yeah, I just felt like I got this coat all of a sudden, and I can like feel the softness, and I feel like other things kind of brushing up against my softness, and it's just like
Oh
a
my
cozy
god.
vibe.
Sarah, I'm pretty sure in the Gene Keys 19 is body hair.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about that. Whoa!
I'm You didn't know that.
I
You
didn't know
just
that. I didn't know
Okay, I
that.
could be wrong. Wait.
No, now that you say that, I think
I'm
that you're right.
I'm pretty sure it
Because
is.
I remember you brought it up in the Heavenly Bodies call. Like,
Yeah, but
that's
that
crazy.
body hair. Physiology is body hair.
And that makes actually complete sense, that connection to the nervous system, because think about physical touch, cuddling, like somebody like petting your skin, like that is so soothing to the nervous system. I am calm touch determination, and I've been thinking, actually like literally this morning I was thinking about how important it is for me to have physical touch, even if it's just like a quick hug to regulate. It's like that's how I know, like, are we good? It's so important for me. We don't even have to talk, but it's like, my roommate's in and out. But like, if we can just be like, hey, like, how are you? Hug, I'm good. We don't need to catch up. Like, I just need to like synchronize with your field to feel the connection, you know? And that's a need, right? 19 is all about our needs, like what we need to survive. what we need in order to evolve. And so in our society, we're so touch starved, especially like with other women. Oh, and this is going to weave really well into the conversation around the shadow of 19 and codependence, and how I think in our society, it's like, oh, it's only okay to like cuddle with your partner, you know, with your husband, with your romantic partner. But I like have such a deep need to like cuddle with my sisters, you know, like that is like the most tender, like, oh, like just even like talking and thinking about it, like that's something that I experienced when I was growing up in high school with my best friend. We used to cuddle all the time, and then I got to college and it was like, "Oh no, I'm in my bubble. You're, you know, in your bubble." And it's really been like very recently, like I feel like within this past year where I've started to really name, "Hey, I just want to sit on the couch with you and like cuddle up." And that is so soothing for my nervous system. The importance of co-regulation with the nervous system.
I really resonate with that softness, that tenderness that is inherent in 19. I would be curious. I mean, actually, let's stay on this thread because we have 19 in Saturn too, so I think that gives it a different quality. But yeah, there's this very much this tribal softness that is like it's very much about touch and direct connection. Food is a huge part of 19. Food is a huge part of my life. Food is like how I can gauge in my world, like the tribe that I belong to. Like when we had our Queen's Council retreat, it was like there was this experience where we were all like all these women were eating this wonderful chicken and we were like so hungry. We were like eating it with our fingers and it was like this ridiculous, amazing, beautiful experience because we were just like feasting. It was the most connective experience I think I've ever had with other women in that kind of way. And it was all centering around food, that we were also nourishing our bodies and we were all like joyful in the nourishing. It was so, and it's like 19 is connected to the nervous system too. So it was like there was a quality of that was like, well, sorry, it's connected through the 49, right? Like because it's connected to the solar plexus. It's in my mind innately connected to the nervous system. And so um there was something so calming in that space and joyful. I kind of see that like the nervous system is like this processing unit that's taking in a lot of external stimulation. And so we get these nerves, right? It's like an excess of energy that's bound inside of the body. And the co regulation is that it through the touch, we're discharging that pent up energy. It's like it's moving that energy. And I think it's like we have I don't know about we have to be careful. It's like obviously you can tell when there's space for co-regulation, right? Like sometimes I'm like I need to regulate. None of us in our family have solar plexus definition at like any of us. But me and both my daughters have 1222 and one of us has 59.6. And so there's that like we really co-regulate each other and like get to kind of have that solar plexus movement of energy. Like it's like it turns it on and it circulates it through our bodies when we're able to like touch and snuggle and hug each other. And at times there's a difference, right? Like a difference of nervous system capacity where they're maybe not available or they've taken in too much stimulation or vice versa. The root is moving towards the solar plexus when we're talking about the 19. And so there can be a lack of awareness in the 19 to know when like enough is enough. So like that 49 is like, "Oh, I'm not available for coat regulation," you know? And then having other tools in our tool belt to go regulate ourselves when we don't have people in our tribal environment who are available for that level of contact.
Yeah. So I did end up going back and listening to an old Raw lecture on 19.
He'll
And I
get
was
you.
like, okay, this is actually, this resonates. So one, 19 is the root of the mystical way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mystical way moves from 19 to 49 to 37 to 40 to 51 to 25 and then out the 1020. But it all begins with 19. And so
Um,
he speaks about this as this need that humans have had to connect with God.
mm,
And this has been like so maybe we'll get into the conversation of like how this desire to connect with spirit has been distorted and manipulated and used to, create separation on this planet when really the root of this is all about the pressure to see the interconnectedness of all things.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it just felt so profound that like when we invited the frequency in, like I felt myself morph into an animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in indigenous cultures today, there is no separation between, they don't see us all as these like separate species. We're all just brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And there was something that just felt so deeply tender about that remembrance.
Yeah.
It feels like an invitation to reclaim our animal nature, which we've been so cut off from.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think this really weaves into this conversation around the shadow of 19, which is codependence. So,
Yeah.
because we have been cut off from our connection to nature, from our own animal nature, we've been cut off from our own power source.
Yep.
And so, this is a conversation I'd love to get into with you. We've been speaking about it in Heavenly Bodies as we've been exploring these bridges in the root, these different placements in the root. And I'd love for you to get a little bit more into the root mechanics of how the root is actually pulling up energy from the earth.
Yep. This is like energy that's coming into our system and not necessarily originating from it. I think like one of like the most simplistic things to always go back to is like the word, the root. It's the root.
Yeah.
It all begins from our roots, our attachments. So like so human of us to have attachments. And 19 teaches us about the quality of attachments that we have in the world, in ourselves, as an emanation of ourselves. And like, I think it really also speaks to the way that we can expand our understanding of nurturing root systems, of
Mm,
nourishing uh, uh, the root and the attachment that we have to the earth, to the planet, to each other, that we are not separate. And it teaches us this sensitivity in our environment, right? Codependence to the gift of sensitivity to the city of sacrifice. That's the gene key 19. And so here in Heavenly Bodies, Bridge 19, I think we're loving like holding that conversation and like taking us from one place to another and in a way that we can, traverse back and forth from. And I think at the root of it, that is something to really tune into with the 19 is it's all about expanding our ideas of what it is to nourish and nurture root systems as a
mm-hmm,
whole. And that
mm-hmm,
requires a level of sensitivity in order to truly understand a reciprocal exchange with the root system versus an extractive, harvesting, degenerative, which is what codependence is.
mm-hmm.
Codependence is this harvesting and this extraction from the root. Let me like pull this thing out by its root system and take it and not replace it. And that's like that sucking codependent energy, really.
Yeah, and what this is making me think of is the idea of offerings
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and how when we are calling in an expansion or just calling whatever into our life, traditionally we would make offerings to the earth because we knew that the way that we would receive that energy, that frequency was from the earth. And so
Yeah.
that was a way of opening up this pathway of reciprocity. I give you this
Yes.
gift, this offering freely from my heart, and I am open to receiving the offerings that you have for me.
Yep.
And like, think of how far we've come from that way of thinking. Luna and I actually recently interviewed a local indigenous Pueblo man named Thunder Bear. And what was kind of coming up was a lot of the things that Charles Eisenstein talks about in sacred economics
Mm.
and how we have in the way that we view our economy now, we have cut off these pathways for reciprocity,
Yeah.
right? We go to the store and then we, pay for the apple or whatever. And so then the exchange ends there. And
Well,
maybe,
like it makes you codependent to go back because the transaction ended. And so instead of there being this gift economy, this um spiritually attuned intelligence to when I need something, who in my community provides this, how can I exchange with them to, nurture and nourish myself, and not only myself, but my people. When you go to the store, you exchange money that becomes separate from you. Okay, transaction's done. I'll have to come back next week. And there's no wheel.
so
There's a disconnection.
everything in this world functions upon a basis of trust.
Yeah.
And so when we are exchanging with each other, that is this slow process of building trust with one another.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we feel uncomfortable being like quote unquote indebted to somebody.
Yes.
Um, and even that language, right? Like that's capitalist language, even in and of itself, right? Like
Yeah.
this whole idea of like bondage.
Yeah.
Like people are so afraid of that. Anyways, this might be a kind of a random tangent, but
Not at all. I think it's on par
okay.
for 19. It's everything that I think Aquarius season as a whole is inviting us into an observation of. And we're all very much, I think the people who perhaps are listening to this podcast could agree that um, there's a real desire to understand at a different level and to evolve that understanding and to really like work within that. And what we are trying to share in these episodes in this series are ways to connect that in our very real lived life. What does that like
Yeah.
look like? What does 19 mean in my very real lived life? And because
Yeah.
these are like, again, the separation shows up.
Another parallel that was coming up in contemplating this mirroring with 41
Mm-hmm.
was that 19 is attuned to these future needs. Like, what are we going to
Yeah.
need in the future? I think the Aquarian nature of it is finally like clicking into place for me. In this
Mm-hmm.
like anticipation of the future, both of these gates are really they're looking towards the future. They're tuned into future timelines and have this awareness and this understanding of where we're going and what we need to do now in order to prepare for that uncertain future.
Yeah, I something that I'm thinking of while I'm listening to you speak about this is so much of the human design kind of rhetoric or conversation about these channels would be pertaining to the sensing circuitry and how there there's this I'm just going to share it here because I don't fully there's a mirror happening in the spleen and the solar plexus as that really speaks to our awareness of time and space, both spleen and solar plexus in similar yet different ways. It's almost as if they're existing on some sort of polarity spectrum. And so we have the sensing circuitry, which speaks to the experiential way that if the spleen, if I'm thinking about this correctly, collective logic circuitry, logical
Yep.
understanding, sorry,
Mhm.
understanding circuitry is about tomorrow, and sensing circuitry is about yesterday. However, there's
Mm.
a flip-flopped effect because what we can understand in the spleen and see with it's very much in the mundane has been compacted over time. This is very much like embodied hereditary information that's like in our spleen. It's like in our system. We inherited it from our parents. And so we have these survival instincts that work in the now because they were passed along from what worked in the past to continue the genetic trait, the genetic legacy. And the solar plexus is, talked about from this angle of like yesterday. It's experiential, so we're looking at the past. Yet here we
Mm.
are, we're talking about how Aquarius is very much oriented towards the future. So
Yeah.
there's something,
That doesn't make sense to me, honestly.
yeah,
Like when because when, okay, let's pretend like I don't know anything about sensing circuitry, whatever.
yeah,
The solar plexus is tuning into, it's taking in information beyond time, across all time,
right,
right?
yeah,
Whereas the spleen is limited in that it only knows right now.
yeah,
And that knowing right now is informed by genetic patterning in the body
yeah,
that is inherited from the past.
from the past, yes. It's like consolidated impact. It's like literally solid matter
Yes.
is like akin to the spleen. It's this deep well of just ancestral knowing and knowledge that yeah, and that's how it's operating in the now. Both
And
of them
what's,
operate in the now though, in my opinion. They're both
yeah,
operate like obviously, like look at us.
yeah.
We have spleens and solar plexuses we're operating right now and it's a part of our awareness, right? Like and And so, yeah, I think that there's a shift in conversation that I would love to see happen there. Not that human design, like, not that what we understand of sensing circuitry is wrong, but that there's a slight orientation that is like, has a potential to be like slightly shifted, like
Yeah.
the way we see
Expanded.
it. Yeah, expanded. Exactly. I mean, everything though.
It's everything we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Yeah. Um, So yeah, that felt kind of poignant
Yeah.
to mention because Aquarius really like that's what we know of Aquarius too. So the Aquarius archetype really kind of compounds and speaks to that as far as the sensing circuitry goes, is that it is futuristic. It is looking towards the future.
It is like you are here from the future. Something else I've been thinking about having, so both of us have Saturn in 19,
Mm-hmm.
right? On the personality side. And then my
Mm-hmm.
41 is on my body side.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in the
Mm,
quality
yeah.
of like how the 19 is more focused on the material resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is the pressure to have resources.
Yeah.
And I'll share a little bit about kind of my personal experience, this period of decrease that I'm going through right now, where for the first time in my whole life, I don't have a corporate job and I've run out of money. And I'm having to really like surrender to the decrease. And what I'm realizing, what actually just occurred to me today was this dance between that 19 Saturn in my mind, which really wants to have plenty, wants to
Yeah.
have the fridge full.
Yeah.
Whereas my body actually is very comfortable with emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Tension.
there my whole life.
Juxtaposition. Jeez. Yeah. Yeah.
And it just really dawned on me today, like, this feels like the ultimate next part of this initiation into surrendering to the body. Everything that I have in tribal circuitry is the personality side, and the tribal circuitry being related to resources, right?
Yeah.
But my body doesn't really care if the fridge is full,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Like
anyway.
the body's like that that consciousness of the wilderness that's like uh, there's an apple to pick off the tree outside. Why are you worried?
Yeah,
You know, like
really.
there's gifts all around.
Don't be
Have
dramatic. You're not gonna die. Like, because
yeah.
it is
And
about survival, right? Like,
and
that's
and our minds that have been colonized, right? Like that all of us, every single one of us listening, are like, no, no, no. Like this means this. There's, I didn't get to I didn't get to have the thing that I wanted, and so then it goes into this whole tizzy, and yeah, this is showing us the way that even potentially there is a new way of observing resources and what that the solar plexus binary is all about frequency and light. Like it is, how can we be nurtured by frequency and light and sound?
totally.
How much does that actually, nourish the body as a vessel too?
Yeah.
And how much are we consuming that we like actually even need, that overwhelms our ability to have a more mystical or spiritual connection to the living world around us? How much are we like desensitized to that connection with external consciousness in our perception of inanimate, which are actually everything is animated around us, everything holds a consciousness? How much does our ideas of like resources and food and how a human body is supposed to work uh cloud or veil actually what we need, what we actually are being asked to nurture and nourish ourselves with?
When I was in the depths of this 41, this decrease initiation, I felt this very clear calling to fast. It was like, okay, how can I just like surrender fully to the decrease? And it was like I woke up that morning and it wasn't even like, oh, I'm gonna do a fast. It was just like, oh, you're fasting. And I had no planning, I'd done no research, but that was completely my experience. My awareness and attunement to the subtle realms, which feels actually this is 19, this attunement to the subtle realms, to Gaia, to the animals, to the plants. And in that emptiness, like not only was I experiencing emptiness in my external reality with just like not having the resources that I'm used to having, but then actually experiencing decrease physically through allowing my body to use the resources that are already within to feed myself. It was profound. I
Yeah.
actually want to do another one soon because it felt like it was reprogramming my
Yeah.
brain really around these 19 and 41 themes,
Yeah.
where it's like by constantly filling ourselves, whether it's with material things, whether it's with food, whether it's with information, we do what did you say, like it kind of it dulls our senses.
Yeah.
It makes us dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because it's like then we don't have that access to the awareness that our connection to spirit brings,
Yes.
right? And spirit speaks through the plants, it speaks through the animals, it speaks through tea, it speaks through just the ethers, right? And so
Yeah.
we're so cut off from those realms. And so I think that whether it's fasting or, some other form of letting yourself be in the decrease and let go of what you don't actually need. I think that's a really cool experiment for our listeners to just contemplate with. Like, what emerges when you surrender to the decrease and allow yourself to use the resources that you have? That has been, it feels like, I think it's kind of cool actually that it feels like this 4119 conversation are really like blending into one another.
It's a lot about us, people engaging with human design, engaging with the body graph, being able to use the resources that we have to then build the bridge of our own connection to it. And the thing that was apparent to me in my connection to 19 was this quality of intimacy that the tribal circuitry really brings, that it is a lot about becoming closer, getting closer in a way that is, the collective is more external and more broad. You can kind of feel it, you can kind of see it. Tribalness really starts blurring the edges between self and the other. It really is the place where we begin to dissolve our ideas of separateness.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Cosmic Communion. If you'd like to dive deeper into these energetics with Cody and Sarah, we invite you to join us inside Heavenly Bodies, a space for cosmic synthesis where we weave together our embodied experience of human design, the gene keys, astrology, and so much more.